So when I was walking Rainy this morning, a thought popped into my head into why they keep killing Leomon. And my thought was, is it a Disney reference to Mufasa? And I'm like, I kind of hope not. It's like, because I mean, let's face it. In the original series, Leomon is one of the characters that, like, we know definitely dies. Wizardmon and a few of the other ones are definitely other ones. And then in Digimon Adventures Try, Leomon comes back, and then he dies again. I was just like, oh god. And then with this, with Jeri and Leomon, Leomon dies again. It's like different Leomon, different Digiworld to a degree, but it's just like, can't you let him live? Can't you just let Leomon live? Is that so hard? And there's even a reference to it in, I think, the fifth Digimon season, Digimon Savers or Digimon Data Squad, whichever one you want to refer to it as. That there's another form of a Leomon there, and I don't remember if it dies or what, but I'm just like, okay, can Leomon just live? Can Leomon just have a happy life with his tamer or with his Digidestined or just on his own? It's fine. Can we just have something where Leomon lives and he's okay and doesn't get killed again? He can go on, have his little spats with Ogremon every now and then, but still team up if the Digidestined need him. Okay, moving on. So this video is the fourth one of the Tamers series. This one is going to be about Jeri Kato, who is kind of the fourth Digimon Tamer that we kind of see pop up. Well, I'm doing these in kind of the order that we see them get their Digimon, is kind of the way that I'm doing these. So for Jeri, she is 10 years old in the Japanese, 12 years old in the English dub. She's in, I think she's supposed to be in middle school, just like Takato. She goes to the same school as Takato. They're in the same class. She very much has a crush on Takato. He has a crush on her. It's reciprocated. And such. I'm fine with Jeri and Takato. That's fine with everything that happens in the series. I'm perfectly fine with the two of them being together. So Jeri kind of starts off as this, is kind of more of like a side character in the first several episodes. She's a little more singled out than some of the other girls in their class because of Takato's crush on her. And she has this puppet that she uses to, talk every now and then. And I'm assuming this has something to do with, because we know via flashbacks, we know that her biological mother died when she was very young, and that her father has since gotten remarried, and they had a child of their own. Jeri has a younger half-brother. Her stepmother is very loving to her and everything, but Jeri just has like a hard time accepting this. And that goes, that we'll go over a little bit more later on in the video. But she seems to get on rather well with her younger brother, but she has this puppet that she uses, and I kind of wish by the end of the series they'd like just gotten rid of the puppet, but they didn't. After everything that happens for Jeri, that would have, I think, been a nice thing for them to have done, but they didn't, so, oh well. And, the puppet is weird. And what happens is, with Jeri, we see her go through this journey of, she starts off as just, this side character, and then she learns that the Digimon are real, and then she gets her own partner, Leomon, and then, everything happens with Leomon. And that, of course, I'm going to go through that. And then, of course, in that regard, her partner is Leomon. We never see him digivolve or de-digivolve. We only see him as Leomon, so there's no evolutionary tree to do here. Revolutionary line to show. Leomon, I would kind of say this version of Leomon has a little bit more of a sense of humor than the one that's in Digimon Adventures. Not that one doesn't have some form of a sense of humor, but this one seems to have a little bit more of it, considering at various times he makes jokes a lot more than the other one did, than the Adventures version did, which is still just kind of funny. But, we see him and Jeri kind of have this, he doesn't want anything to do with her in the beginning. And then by the end, by the time they have to go to the digital world, yeah, they're Tamer and Digimon, which, of course, I will go over. Going into the history, as I mentioned, with Jeri, we know that when she was very young, her biological mother died, and it was just her and her father is the one that was raising her, and of course taking care of her, and doing everything that he could, along with, I believe, running their family restaurant, which we know serves alcohol. Um, there's differences in culture between here and there. So yeah, in the English dub, I think they refer to them as milkshakes, which I will go over. Um, and so we see Jeri there. We see Jeri at the same school as Takato and Kazu and Kenta and everything, being around them, and she kind of teases the boys for really liking Digimon. And then at one point, she has this conversation with Takato where Takato mentions, this is during the time frame when like Gilmon digivolved for the first time and he can't go back to his smaller form, to his rookie form. So he's like stuck as Growlmon. And Takato and Jeri kind of have this conversation, and Takato makes the comment that he's like, well, because he has to like figure out a way to phrase this so it's not about a Digimon. He's like, well, I have a friend and they grew up and they got a lot bigger, and I'm just kind of, worried. And she interprets this as he has a friend who's a girl and she grew up a lot, like puberty hit her hard or something like that. And then it's just like he's shy to be seen with her because he's like embarrassed about it. So he wants her to be like back to like or more his height. And Jeri just like, she interprets it as it's being about her, which is hilarious because like, yes, Takato does have a crush on her, but it's just hilarious the way that they pull this off. And she goes like, Takato, you must go back out into the world. There are plenty of fish in the sea. And it's just like the puppet talking. And I'm just like, okay, can we please get rid of the puppet? And, Takato's like, okay. He's just like completely embarrassed. And then like at various points in time, she hears Takato talking to, Kazu and Kenta about Digimon and about like he really has a Digimon. And, Jeri kind of already had like a bad encounter with Calamon because like Jeri had like been in the nurse's office and like apparently Calamon had been there too, rummaging around because Calamon gets into everything that he can, and like Calamon kind of scared Jeri, and Jeri like kind of didn't want anything to do with Digimon for a little bit, and then she heard about Gilmon and she's like, can I meet Gilmon? And Takato like, okay, sure, yeah, sure, come with me. And he introduces her to Gilmon. And Gilmon is, like, she's just like, oh my god, he's so cute! And, like, hugs him and, like, gives him a sticker on his nose. And, like, she just thinks Gilmon is so adorable, which he is. Takato's like, no, he's not cute, he's cool. She's like, no, he's cute, Takato, get over it. Growlmon goes more into the cool section. Gilmon is cute. As are most, rookie Digimon tend to be on the cute side. And it's just like, that's just like this funny bit that happens there. And of course, during the time frame, like, the Devas start showing up and the rest of the kids are all introduced to, Growlmon and, the rest of, Rika and Henry, with Renamon and Terriermon and everything, and Calamon, and like they're introduced to all of them. And like, a good portion of Takato's class gets introduced to them. And of course, Jeri kind of helps Takato get like the rest of, get Gilmon onto the bus. And like, she's at the summer camp with them, the camping trip for the school, and like, gives food to Gilmon and everything like that. So, she gets along with Gilmon pretty quickly and everything. And then we have this moment where, Jeri kind of starts to decide that she kind of wants to have a Digimon of her own, or she kind of thinks she wants to be a Digimon tamer because she, sees the bond that like Takato and Gilmon have, and Rika and Renamon and Henry and Terriermon and such. And she kind of is interested in having that type of a bond as well. And what happens is she kind of thinks that maybe Calamon could be her Digimon. And, we have her like sharing food with Calamon, and then she like looks at Calamon, she's like, why don't you become my partner and I'll be your tamer? Calamon, what? No. And, Jeri's like, no, it'll be fine. We can be tamer and Digimon and it'll be fun. I'm just like, okay. And like Calamon's not really going for it. But there are cream puffs involved, so Calamon's somewhat interested. And what happens is that's when, The mouse Davis shows up. Do not ask me what his name is. I do not remember it. I didn't write it down because I don't care. Or at least at the moment I don't care. But the mouse Davis shows up and starts like chasing Jeri and Calamon around the park. And then, another Digimon shows up and it's Leomon. And Jeri is just like instantly smitten with Leomon, like, ah, Leomon. Like, just like, she's just like instantly like, oh my god, it's Leomon. He's so amazing. True, he is amazing, but calm down. And, like, Leomon kind of shoos off the mouse Digimon, and then like Jeri just starts becoming like obsessed with Leomon, and she's just like she's just like, oh, Leomon, you're my Digimon, and I'm your tamer, and it's just like we're gonna be such a good pair together. And he's just like looking at her like she's crazy, and like Jeri even like has this moment where she kind of gives him like the goo goo eyes of like just like, ah, Leomon, and Leomon is just literally like, back away slowly from the strange girl is literally the look in his eyes. He starts running around the park and Jeri's chasing him. Just chasing him all over the place. And like Calamon like keeps pointing out where, oh, I hear Rainy. Rainy, you wanna come in here? Come in here with Mama? I'm talking about a lion, but I can have a dog in the video. Come on. Yes, I know I love you too. Dog. Puppy. My puppy. But Jeri's just like chasing Leomon all over the park. And, Staccato shows up at one point and he just like sees Leomon and he thinks that Leomon's like a threat for a second. And Leomon's like, no, I'm not a threat. And then like Jeri comes up and she goes, this is Leomon. He's my Digimon. No. And Leomon, again, no. And he has like this little speech that he does, which is kind of funny. All I've been hearing about are partners and tamers. I don't know what those are, but let's just get one thing straight. I'm a lone warrior. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it's going to stay. Do I make myself clear? And what ends up happening is, while they're still like running around and like Staccato, like, while Jeri keeps chasing him around, Staccato actually like gets on the phone and like calls Henry, because there's like a payphone in the park, because like kids nowadays don't know what payphones is. It's this, yeah. But he's calling Henry on the payphone, and like Henry's like, well, how does she know that he's that she's his tamer? And like Staccato like asks Jeri, like she stops running for a second. It's like, it's just a feeling. Keeps chasing Leomon, and like Leomon is just like, oh god, please make her stop. And then like he calls Rika, and Rika goes like, well, did a Digivice appear? And Staccato asks Jeri, well, did a Digivice appear? Well, no, but he's my partner. It's destiny. And like keeps chasing him. Staccato into the phone. Well, no Digivice, but she says that it's destiny. Rika, well, then he's not her partner because the Digivice didn't show up. Now, goodbye. So we have that moment. And then the mouse Davis shows back up again and like tries to attack Jeri, and Leomon, like defeats it. Because he can. He's strong enough to, and he defeats the mouse Deva. And then, Leomon kind of leaves, and Jeri is actually kind of sad because, she really wanted him to be her Digimon, and like while he was fighting the mouse Deva, she'd actually like told Staccato, give me your Digivice, and like, he does, and she like tries swiping, like one of the modified cards that would be helpful to Leomon, but it doesn't do anything. And she tries again and it still doesn't work. And, and that kind of like really kind of makes Jeri very sad. And, during this time frame is when there's like, I think like 2 or 3 episodes of like, another Deva shows up and like Jeri's kind of sad, and like she goes and she like tries to get Kazu and Kenta to start teaching her how to play Digimon, like use the cards and everything. And like she like apparently she saved up a bunch of her like allowance money and bought like a lot of really good cards. And they're just like, well, we'll trade you for these. And she's like, no, I don't want to trade. I want to learn how this actually works. And like Kazu and Kenta don't really want to do it, and then don't really want to help with training. So Rika offers to start, giving Jeri pointers and how to, how to battle. And, so they start developing this little bond. Where she goes like, okay, well, you're going to need attack, and you're going to need different defense cards, and you're going to need some of these other stuff, but mostly you're going to work on this. And so, like, Jeri's paying very close attention to that and everything. And then, of course, like, the big battle happens with, Caramon, with the giant boar Deva, where they're, like, running through the city, and during this time frame, Jeri and Kazu and Kenta have, like, Calamon with them, and, like, they're trying to keep Calamon safe because, he's the monkey Deva, but he's, like, in disguise. Makuramon, I believe, is a monkey Deva, but he's in disguise as, like, a kid. And then he, like, ends up chasing them around the city, trying to get Calamon with all the chaos that's going on. And he does end up catching Calamon, takes him from Jeri and the other two, and, like, heads off into the digital world. And during this time frame, Leomon showed up and tries to attack Makuramon. He gets knocked down by an attack and, is, like, hurt on the ground. And, like, that's when the Digivice appears for Jeri. And she takes it, and she's able to, like, use the power from the Digivice to help heal Leomon. And, that's when all the Digidestin are like, okay, so we have to go to the digital world to get Calamon back. He's our friend. We have to go save him because we have no idea what the Devas and the Sovereign are going to do to him, so we have to go and save him. And Jeri's like, I'm coming too. And, like, the night before, like, the day before they leave, or it's, like, that night or whatever, she, like, her and Leomon, like, sit out on, like, her windowsill, and, like, she gives him juice, and, like, they have this nice little conversation, and Leomon seems to have warmed up a little bit to her, because she's like, well, I can't deny the Digivice. She does have the Digivice now. And, like, they have this conversation between the two of them about Jeri not feeling like she's strong enough, and Leomon encouraging her, which is kind of this.
I don't care about danger. As long as you're there with me, I just hope I live up to being your partner. Sometimes I think I'm not good enough. You're such a little thing, but you have a lion's heart.
And, then, like, the next day at school or whatever, Jeri and Takato and Kazu, or Jeri, Takato, Kazu, and Kenta kind of all get scolded by their teacher, and they leave her, like, apology notes that saying they're going to go to the digital world. And she's just like, but you can't go to the digital world. I love their teacher. She's great. And, like, it's like, no, we have to go because our friend's in danger. And then, like, all of them, plus, the Digidestin, plus Kazu and Kenta are all headed off to the digital world. Ias has puppy. He is my puppy. Are you going to turn into a Digimon? Nope. But he does look like a Rockruff. Well, he looks like a midday form Lycanroc, in all honesty, which I've pointed out before. And, so they head to the digital world, and, we have these, like, little moments in the digital world where we see, like, Jeri and Leomon, taking care of each other and, like, helping their friends and everything. And, Leomon and Renamon are kind of the two that know the most about, like, dealing with the digital world in certain areas because they were probably there the longest before going to the human world. And we see that. And, at some point, Rika and Kazu and Kenta get separated from the rest of the group, and then, then Jeri or Takato and Takato and Henry and Gilmon Terriermon get separated from the group, and, like, they group back up again and all this other stuff. Going back and forth. And at one point, like, Jeri kind of comforts Takato because he finds a letter from his mom, and she, he's kind of, he's worried, because his mother's worried, and Jeri kind of, like, comforts him. And kind of the main episode where we see Jeri kind of being center placed is an episode where they end up dealing with this Digimon that is called Orochimon. I would call it a Wano reference to One Piece, but this happened a long time ago. This happened a long time before anything happened with Wano in One Piece. I think it was even before we knew about Wano in One Piece. That Orochimon is around, but it's based on, like, the legend that goes with, like, the Yamato no Orochi in, like, Japanese culture. But what happens is they come across this, this Orochimon in this lake, and, like, it kidnaps Jeri, and, like, it drags her away to, like, its, like, living area, and it's like, no, you will feed me milkshakes. And, like, I mean, in the actual anime, it's not milkshakes. In the actual Japanese dub, it's like sake, and like she has to like pour the sake into like these giant cups to like for him to drink, and there's like extra data added into this stuff that just gives him more power. And but in the English dub, they changed it into milkshakes, which I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand a little bit why they did that. It's just like little bits here and there. I can understand why they changed it. Um, but like she feeds him milkshakes in the English dub, and during this time frame, Leomon of course very much wants to rescue her, as do the rest of the Digimon, and this is the same time when Kazu is like bonding with Gardramon when all that happens for him. um and they are the group shows up, and during this time frame it's actually Leomon and Jeri that actually finish off Orochimon, because Jeri actually uses this this powerful Lady Devimon card that like powers up Leomon and allows him to defeat Orochimon. I do not remember, however, if Leomon loads Orochimon's data or not. I don't remember off the top of my head. But during that time frame, we do see that like Jeri was able to like hold her head, hold her cool when she was dealing with Orochimon. And her intention was to like kind of, follow kind of like what happens in the myth where like, she, feeds Orochimon enough sake until he falls asleep, or enough milkshakes until he falls asleep. Kind of worked. Most of the heads were asleep. And, so we kind of see that, and we kind of see that she's gained more confidence in regards to being a tamer. And, her bond with Leomon has gotten a bit stronger during this time frame. I don't remember if they ever state exactly how long they were in the digital world, but I heard at some point I know at some point like one of the monster makers that are working to bring them home mentioned something of like 3 weeks or something like that, but I don't know, since we don't ever get like an exact amount of time. Same thing with like in the Digimon Adventures time frame for like when they're first in the digital world. We have like a rough estimate, but we don't know exactly for how long they were in the digital world. And as I mentioned before, there is a moment in the series where they're walking through the digital world, and like Kazu and Kenta are arguing about when they're going to get their own Digimon. Because that's why Kazu and Kenta went to the digital world, because they want to get their own Digimon. Not that I blame them. I mean, like, if the opportunity arose for me to go to the digital world, I'd be like, well, you're going to get your own Digimon if you go. You're going to find your Digimon partner. I'd be like, well, the thought bears pondering of what one I would get. And what happens is, they get to the digital world, or, while they're walking around, with Kazuo and Kenta just arguing, Leomon just kind of like says something along the lines of this, which is just funny.
No, but if I didn't say something, they'd never shut up. This'll keep them busy for a while. Just my humble attempt to bring joy into the lives of some poor, misguided youth.
It's like this Leomon has more of a sense of humor than the one that's in the Adventure series. As I said, not that one didn't have a sense of humor, but this one kind of seems to a little bit more. Although it would have been nice to see in the Tamer series about having Jeri actually have Leomon digivolve into Saber Leomon at some point in time would have been cool. Doesn't happen in the series, obviously, unfortunately. But it would have been nice to see that, to see their bond progress that far. But Leomon is already a champion Digimon, so, a little bit harder for that to be dealt with. Then we move on to okay, now we're going to take your heart out of your chest and then watch it and then stomp onto the floor and make you watch and then put it back in your chest and see how you feel moment that happens. One of those that happens with Tamers. And, after Takato and Henry get separated and then they get back and everything and they're all reunited, they have to deal with Beelzemon. And there's this fierce battle that happens with Beelzemon. Rapidmon tries to deal with him. Same thing with Cubimon. Doesn't work. She tries to, reason with it because she knows that he's Itmon. Doesn't work. And then Leomon tries to reason with him. Tries to make him, don't hurt the kids. Blah, blah, blah. Is protecting the kids. Not just Jeri, but all the kids. And we see all this happen. And then we see Beelzemon stab his arm through Leomon. And that's enough to end Leomon. And we see him start to, turn into data and everything. And we just watch this look on Jeri's face as he's, going away. And it's just this, it's this horrified look of like, no, 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 this can't be happening. This is not happening, combined with, oh God, why? And it's just this anguished look that we do see on her face. And like, as he vanishes, as he, fully digitizes and, Bialzamon absorbs his data, he's like, remember, Jeri, you have a lion's heart, is, what he said. Be brave, Jeri. A part of me will always be with you. Remember, you have a lion's heart. And then Jeri just lets out this wail of agony, of anguish that, it's not something I attempt to do here because I don't need to scare the neighbors or the dog. I could probably scream and the dog wouldn't do anything. And, so we have all of that happens, and like Bialzamon absorbs Leomon's data during that time frame. And she, Jeri just, it takes a little bit for her to like be able to like, process a little bit of what happened. And during this time frame is, when Takato, gets very angry and where, he, warp, corrupt Digivolves Gilmon all the way up to Megidramon and is, trying, is fighting against Bialzamon. And we have that whole incident that happens there. And Jeri is just like, she's scared at seeing what Takato turned Gilmon into, from this cute little thing into, this horrible monster. And she like backs away from Takato. And it hurts to watch. And then, Takato calms down, and then he gets, him and Gilmon biomerge into Gallopmon. And from there, Gallopmon tries to fight against Bialzamon, and he does defeat him, but he does not kill him, destroy him, because Jeri says, don't do it, don't destroy him. And I think she says something along the lines of like, I can't, to Bialzamon, I can't forgive you for what you did to Leomon, but that doesn't mean that you deserve to be destroyed as well. That won't bring Leomon back. And, so we see that happen, and, Takato and Gilmon spare Bialzamon, and then he, goes off on his own. He's gonna go walkabout. And, we have this, like, several episodes in here where they're dealing with, like, the Digimon Sovereign, and, like, Jeri is kind of, like, shutting down a little bit at this point in time. She's, her Digivice has gone fuzzy because, she doesn't have the connection to Leomon anymore, and she's just very, maybe this is my destiny to be alone, all this other stuff. She's, just getting very, sad about this, which I don't blame her. I mean, I've lost people in my life long before they should have gone to suicide or to other things that happened long before they should have been, long before their time should have been, or at least in my opinion, when their time should have been. And it hurts, particularly, it hurts. I'm not saying that it doesn't. It does hurt. And as I've stated before, that Digimon, and to a degree other anime as well, even if they're more on like the kids side of an anime, have done very good jobs at like depicting like what, in this case, kind of what depression looks like for Jeri, and what happens with other characters in Digimon, and how they show that, because with Takato, we see how angry he gets, and that results in Megidramon. With Jeri, her depression just makes her just kind of like shut off from the rest of the world. And they don't, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, because I know from experience, from being around people that have dealt with depression, that depression isn't just something that you can snap out of and it goes away. It's something you have to deal with. It's the thing that you deal with for the rest of your life to a degree. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's really bad, sometimes it's really good, and it's not really an issue at that time. And, it depends on what's going on around you and everything. And during this time frame, like, Jeri's friends, like, keep trying to comfort her. And, make sure that she knows she's not alone. And, like, we have all these incidents where they're dealing with, like, the different sovereigns, Chuchaomon and Azulongmon, and then where they start learning about the D Reaper and what it can do. And, one of the things that kind of like shakes Jeri up a little bit is like Rika goes to try to like fight the D Reaper with, Renamon. And then like, Jeri gets is like very thankful that like Rika's okay. And she like, goes and hugs Rika. And then like when they're getting like some of the backstory about the D Reaper, like Jeri kind of goes off on her own and then appears to come back. And I mean, like as an audience member, you can kind of be like, okay, that's not Jeri. That's not Jeri anymore. Whatever that is, it's not Jeri. And, we have like this fake Jeri that's around for a little while. It's one of the D Reaper's agents. And we have this moment where, the fake Jeri, travels back to, the real world on the Ark with Takato and his group. And, where Takato takes the fake Jeri on the train and takes her back to her house, back to where her parents are staying. And Takato actually kind of confesses to the fake Jeri that he has feelings for her. And those feelings are, I don't remember if Takato ever ends up like saying those things to the real Jeri, maybe later on off camera, but like, um, so we have that moment that happens there. And, I'll go into Jeri's relationship more with her family in a little bit, but also in like their own video where I talk more about her dad and her mom and her stepmom and her half brother. And what ends up happening is, during this time frame, Calamon went with the fake Jeri, and then when the fake Jeri disappears, Calamon comes back to, the city and ends up actually like finding Ipmon. And, Ipmon has, had like his whole conscience flipped at this point in time. And, now he actually wants to help Jeri. He wants to find her and he wants to save her and help her because of, he's the reason that, Leomon is gone. And he at least wants to do something to try to see if he can make things better. And we kind of cut to, a little bit longer, and like Calamon ends up saying that she feels where Jeri is, that she can sense Jeri. And, Impmon goes all the way up to Beelzemon, and he's helping, Calamon try to get to where Jeri is. And, like, they kind of have to, fight through the D Reaper. And they get to what is basically this, little floating sphere that Calamon can feel. And, like, Beelzemon ends up, like, just, like, wailing on it with punches. And, like, okay, funny moment that happens. Calamon, well, Beelzemon is just, like, wailing away with punches on this thing. Hit it again, harder, harder. Is what Calamon does. And they are able to get through this section of, the D Reaper, and they get inside, and like this, kind of orb of D Reaper material appears. And they see this, this other sphere, and inside of the sphere is Jeri. It's the real Jeri. And she's just like, kind of sitting there with her head in her lap and everything. And, with her legs to her chest and everything, and looking very, just like sad and everything. And Calamon gets to, where Jeri is, and like Beelzemon actually kind of ends up getting captured by the D Reaper at this point in time, and the other Digidestined or the other Tamers are informed about what happened, and so they're trying to get to, where Beelzemon is. And Calamon is kind of trying to get Jeri to snap out of it, trying to get Jeri to, understand, that she needs to snap out of this and everything, or at least wake up and notice what's going on around her a little bit more. And, we kind of see Jeri have this, like, nightmare where she's, like, remembering what happened just after her mother died, and, like, how she was just so sad about that. And, like, the D Reaper is, like, kind of, like, making her feel these different horrible things about, like, feeling sad about losing, when she lost her mother, and about losing Leomon and all this other stuff. And, it's like going through her memories and making her have bad memories and everything, and like getting information from her about her family, about her friends, about her life, about, the world in general and everything, as much as it can from her, because she was like the sampling that they took. And the D Reaper even states later on that there was compatibility between Jeri and them, between Jeri and the D Reaper, because at the time when Jeri was in like her depressed state after losing Leomon, Jeri is just very, like, she's empty. She doesn't want to feel anything at that point in time. And the D Reaper kind of gives her that option of like, okay, well, you don't want to feel anything, so we'll kind of, make it so you don't have to worry about this. And so we have this moment that happens, and you know, via, like Takato and the others, like fighting against a part of the D Reaper outside, Beelzemon is able to like get away from like where he's like being held against the D Reaper, and he's like working on like trying to beat his way into the part of the Colonel area where Jeri is, so he can try to save her and Calamon. And like Calamon kind of has like gotten Jeri to like wake up a little bit, and Jeri's kind of paying more attention to what's going on. The also thing is like during this time frame, like the D Reaper keeps using Jeri's voice to talk, which is like freaking everybody out. It's like Jeri's voice, but it's a slightly computerized version of it. But like that's still a creepy thing to deal with, particularly when it knows so much about you from Jeri itself in regards to Takato or her father. It messes with them, using her voice and using her memories. And during that time frame, what ends up happening is, Beelzemon is able to like get free from like the thing that's holding him, and he, is like, he's like, I have to save you, Jeri. I need to save you. And I'll go into this more in Beelzemon when I talk about Itmon and his tamers, when I get to that video. But like kind of what we see happen is it's Itmon wants to do it because he is sorry for what he did to Leomon, that he killed Leomon, for that he attacked the Tamers that had actually done nothing but show kindness to him over the year, over the time frame that he knew them. And he knows that at least a way that he can start repaying them for what he did is by trying to get to Jeri, is by trying to get her out of there. And it's like his version of like trying to make amends. And he's like using as much of his power as he can, and he like kind of begs, I guess, the gods for whatever, for the power, and he's able to actually summon up Beelzemon's data that's inside of him, tap into that data, and actually use Beelzemon's Fist of the Beast King, and is able to bash a hole into the sphere where Jeri is able to cause enough damage to make an opening. And what ends up happening, unfortunately, is Jeri actually ends up, she has this adverse effect because, like, it was Leomon's attack, but it was coming from Beelzemon, and, like, Beelzemon is the one that destroyed Leomon and, like, took Leomon away from her and everything, so she kind of actually ends up backing up, and, almost could have gone with Beelzemon, and a lot of this would have been a lot better, but she didn't. She's too terrified and backs away from Beelzemon that's trying to save her, and during this time frame, the D Reaper is able to, like, eject. The Colonel closes back up again, and it's just her and, her and Calamon in there, and, like, Beelzemon gets knocked away, and he gets, very badly injured, and is de-digivolved back down to Itmon. Again, I'll go into that more in Itmon's video. And, the rest of the Tamers watch as, like, more, like, enforcement shows up around, like, the sphere and, like, forms around the sphere and, makes it harder to get to, and, like, the D Reaper grows, and like Jeri kind of realizes what she did. She realizes that that if she had gone with Beelzemon, then she would have been safe. And she, gets very angry about this. And like the D Reaper actually ends up using this anger that is coming from Jeri as a way to like power itself up more. And like, the fake D Reaper agent had showed up. That was like the fake Jeri agent shows up and, kind of like, argues with Jeri, and it's just like humans are just meant for nothing but destruction. They make Digimon to destroy and everything. And Jeri's like, no, that's not true. And goes through this whole bit where she's like arguing against it, and like it traps Jeri, like has her all wrapped up and everything. In the Japanese dub, she's basically like looks like she's being crucified. In the English dub, they kind of make her arms down at her sides instead. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see where they did that, a little bit. And so, like, Jeri's trapped again, and so is Calamon. And, during this time frame, the rest of the Tamers are like, okay, well, we have to get in here, and we have to do this. And we have this moment where Jeri and Calamon are actually, at some point, via shifting around of the D Reaper, they both end up on the floor with Jeri still wrapped up in, like, the coils of the D Reaper. And she has her little puppet, and the puppet is kind of being controlled by the D Reaper, or it's being influenced by by the D Reaper that's still kind of influencing Jeri. and it tries to convince Jeri that like the human don't deserve to live and that Jeri doesn't deserve to live, that she's the reason all of this is going on. And like I love what they do here. They have Calamon just like jump over and grab the puppet and throw it away. And she's like, "Don't listen." And Calamon's like, "Don't listen to that rag. It's not true." And so bye bye puppet for the time being. And so we have that moment that happens, and like Calamon is trying to convince Jeri that no, this is not your fault. That the D Reaper would have done all of this regardless of what you did, so it's not your fault for what is going on. And like Jeri is blaming herself for like the Altamon getting hurt when he was trying to save her, like blaming like herself for like everything happening with like her friends getting hurt, and like for all the destruction that the D Reaper is causing in the human world and in the digital world. Hi. Good baby. Come here. I pet you. Or not. Why don't you love me? He's like, I do love you, but right now I want window. Okay. You're gonna have window? Later. And what ends up happening is, during this time frame, it's like there's like a week that passes in there somewhere, and Takato and Rika and Henry and Rio are all, bio-merged and inside the D Reaper, fighting against the D Reaper and everything. And, Jeri has this moment where she finally is able to, via, hearing the D Reaper argue with like Takato and her friends, and with being able to finally, pull herself out of her depression, she has this great speech that she gives first to Calamon and then to the D Reaper as a whole, where she's just like shouting at it about like, why you were, you messed with my mind and everything. And this is what she says.
Calamon, I think it's time we got ourselves out of here, don't you? We can laugh together and be friends again and eat cream puffs. You can hear me, can't you? I know you can. I've had it with you. You stole my voice and upset my dad and my friends. You even snooped around in my head and messed with my memories. Losing Leomon broke my heart, but I never should have let you take the beautiful memory of my friend and turn it into something ugly. It was wrong of me to believe that feeling nothing was better than feeling sad. The sadness was real. It was human. I misunderstood Leomon. He never meant for me to think my life had no meaning. He said we all have our own destiny, and that's not the same thing. Every one of us has a destiny that's different and that's special. Isn't that right? Thank you, Leomon. You can't delete even one of us without deleting something that the whole world needs. Every one of us has something important to do.
So she's pulling her way, she's like able to like get herself free from that to a degree, and her Digivice lights up with power from Leomon, and it's able to actually cause like a lot of damage to like the sphere that Jeri is in, and it makes the sphere crack, and it allows for it's like a distraction from the D Reaper, while like Henry and Sakuyamon and Justimon are over here dealing with this part of the D Reaper. Takato's over here in his Crimson mode, defeating the different D Reaper's agents, including the fake Jeri agent. And, gets all the way up to where Jeri is. And like Calamon has like protected Jeri with like his own power to like keep Jeri safe, because like they had been kind of trapped by like a bunch of the D Reaper gel, goo, whatever you want to call it, getting to them. And like, Takato is able to get to her and save her and everything. And then of course the rest of the Digidestin are all able to like get out of the D Reaper as it's, de-evolving and turning back into just like its little tiny program. And, we have this moment where all of them are all safe and they're all waiting in the park, and they're all just like, all the Tamers are there, including Jeri, and, Intmon shows up, and Intmon, like, apologizes to Jeri again, and Jeri says, it's okay, Intmon, and I'm glad that you're okay, and I'm glad that you were able to find your Tamers, because, like, Ai and Mako are there with them, and, are there with Intmon, so, like, they're able to see them, and then that's of course when all the Digimon start shrinking, And they all, Henry's father shows up and explains what's going on, and all the Digimon go back to their little in training forms, and then they float up into the air, and Jeri's kind of the one that says goodbye to Calamon. And it's kind of hinted that during this time frame that Calamon kind of became like a sort of second partner to Jeri. When during her rescue with during the rescue with Bialzamon and everything, that Calamon kind of takes that place a little bit. We never really, it's like Jeri doesn't get like a new Digivice that connects her to Calamon or anything like that, but we do kind of see like this bond between them has kind of grown. And they all say goodbye to the Digimon. And then we all we cut jump ahead a little bit. Everybody's happy again and everything after they say goodbye to the Digimon. And Jeri has her puppet back, which is like, I'm just sorry, that's just I don't know, they never quite explained the puppet, but I would have liked it if they didn't bring it back. And during that time frame, then we can it's hinted that like, oh, Takato finds another portal and they're able to get the Digimon back, because then later on when we do get to the Digimon Runaway Lokomon movie, they're planning Rika's birthday party, and Jeri was kind of the one that like decided to do it and like have it be like a surprise party. So we only see Jeri a little bit in the movie. She's like at the beginning, we see her and Calamon helping Rika's grandmother decorate the cake and get everything ready for the party and everything. And then like we see them at the end where we see like, Jeri's at the party and everything, and we just kind of see Jeri with Calamon a lot and that stuff. So it just kind of hinted that Calamon has kind of become like a second-ish partner to Jeri, but Calamon doesn't digivolve anyway, so there wouldn't really be anything there, and Calamon's not designed for fighting, so yeah. In regards to Jeri's parents, we have her father, Tadashi Kato, who is her biological father. We have her biological mother, who is deceased. We have Shizu Kato, who is her stepmother, and then we have her younger half brother, who is Matsuhiko Kato. We don't really see too much else. I think we know that she has like an aunt or an uncle that lives somewhere. Don't really see too much about that. We know that Jeri is kind of used to having to deal, I guess, with like drunk men from like the people that would go to her dad's restaurant, so she's used to dealing with that. That's why she knew how to handle Orochimon, I guess, which is just weird in and of itself. The thing that you kind of see with Jeri, and I mentioned this a little bit because in the first season, TK loses Angemon the first time he digivolves, and he loses Patamon in that way. And, but he gets Patamon back because he turns into an egg, and then he eventually hatches, and then he does get Patamon back, and he gets him, and he gets even stronger. And then in the second season, we see Ken lose Wormmon. And as I said, in the first season, Leomon dies, as does like Waymon and Wizardmon and several others. And then in the second season, we kind of see some of them come back. And then in Digimon Adventures Try, we see technically all of the Digidestined lose their Digimon when like they have to do the big reset on the digital world, the reboot. And we lose Leomon again in that time frame. And, we kind of see what the loss of a partner Digimon can do to other Digidestined. And even in regards to, like, we see that with Mako in Digimon Adventures Try, the female older Digidestined, for them. So we kind of see those, or not Mako, Maki. So we see those instances happen. But the thing is that Digimon Tamers doesn't have a primary village. We don't see anything in Digimon Tamers that indicates that there is a primary village like what we see in the first two seasons of Digimon Adventures or in Try. And even in the fourth season in Frontier, there's like the Village of New Beginnings, which is the same basic idea as the primary village. It's where the Digi-Eggs go and they're able to hatch again. We don't see anything like that in Digimon Tamers, so does that indicate that there is no way for a Digimon to be able to be reborn? And if so, that just makes the loss of Leomon hit a lot harder than it does with some of the other characters. And then some of the other Digimon in some of the other seasons. Not that it doesn't still hurt for those ones, but it makes it hurt a little bit more because it's an indication that even if Jeri was able to get back to the digital world with the rest of her friends, unless they find a place that has that concept, because they don't mention anything about Digimon being reborn again in this world. It's like they die, is kind of what they go with in that world for the Tamers, which is a little bit harder to stomach to a degree. But that's what they show. I don't really have too much else to say. As I said, I've watched people in my life that have dealt with depression on various levels. I mean, I would say that everybody deals with depression at some point in their life. It just depends on whether or not that is something that is a much harder part for you to deal with or a much more active part of your life. And yeah, I've had moments where I got sad and everything, but I don't think I've gotten to the point where I would be like the way that Jeri is. Because as Jeri says in her speech, it's like, the sadness was real. The sadness was human in regards to missing Leomon, in regards to, missing her mother and missing Leomon and all of that. It was real. It was something. And that feeling something is better than feeling nothing. And there's other shows that have gone over this to varying degrees. But that's what I have here for Jeri. I thank you for watching. The next one up, I believe, should be Ryo Akayama in regards to that. So that would be him and Cyberdramon. So I thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And puppy.